Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take complex stuff, look at the sources, and really dig out those interesting bits that help you feel properly informed.
That's the goal.
Today, we're embarking on a pretty fascinating deep dive into an ancient text, the Ghoṭamukhasuttaṃ. Now, this isn't just some dusty old document. It's actually a conversation, and it unpacks these huge questions about living a meaningful life. It gives us some really powerful ideas about the different paths people choose.
Absolutely.
So our mission for you today is to explore 4 distinct archetypes, 4 types of individuals, and try to understand which path really leads to peace and fulfillment, at least according to this ancient wisdom. Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, what's really interesting here is how this old dialogue, it's between this venerable monk, Āyasmā Udeno, and a Brahmin named Ghoṭamukha.
Right.
And it's set in this serene grove, Kimyambhavana, near Varanasi in India. It directly tackles this timeless human problem. How should we live?
A small question.
It's a small one, but it provides this framework, for looking at different life approaches and why some seem to lead to suffering, while others, they point towards liberation.
So what's the relevance for us now? How did this whole thing even start?
Well, the story kicks off with Ghoṭamukha. He's a Brahmin. Maybe they're on business in Baraichi, and he's just walking through this grove.
Okay.
And he spots Āyasmā Udeno, the monk, walking nearby. So he goes up to him.
And after the usual polite greetings, Ghoṭamukha comes out with a pretty blunt statement, doesn't he?
He really does. He basically says, Sir, it seems to me there's no one leading a proper religious life, a parabaho, a renunciant, according to the Dhamma. He feels like there aren't any truly venerable people around practicing correctly.
That's quite the opening line. What's behind that, do you think?
Well, I think Ghoṭamukha's skepticism points to something we all experience sometimes, right? How hard it is to tell real spiritual practice from just, going through the motions or someone's personal take on things. He's basically saying, I don't see anyone genuinely living it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Udeno's response is just so calm.
Very graceful.
He comes down from where he was walking, invites Ghoṭamukha to sit, and sort of sets the stage for a real discussion. He even invites him to challenge or ask questions.
And Ghoṭamukha shows respect, too. He insists on taking a lower seat, only sitting when invited. You can tell they were both settling in for a serious talk.
Definitely. So Udeno gets right to the heart of it. He suggests a way to understand human behavior, introducing these 4 types of individuals you find in the world.
Exactly. And these 4 types cover the whole range of how people deal with suffering, their own suffering, and the suffering of others.
Okay, what are they?
So first, there's the self-tormentor, the attantapo. This is someone dedicated to, self-affliction.
Ouch.
Second, the tormentor of others, parantapo. Someone whose life is focused on afflicting other beings.
Okay.
Third, you've got the combination. The self and other tormentor, attantapo plus parantapo. Someone doing both.
Both. Wow.
And then the 4th one, neither self nor other tormentor, nivatantapo aparantapo. And this one is described really beautifully as cooled, extinguished, blissful, experiencing happiness in this very life, abiding with a Brahma-like self.
Brahma-like self, meaning like enlightened, pure.
Exactly. A mind that's expansive, pure, free from suffering.
Yeah.
Kind of like the highest state you can imagine.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Udeno then asks Ghoṭamukha straight up, of these 4, which one appeals to your mind?
Ghoṭamukha doesn't hesitate. He immediately says the first 3 are definitely not appealing.
Why not?
His logic is simple. They torment themselves or others, and everyone fundamentally wants happiness and dislikes suffering. So why would you choose a path based on causing pain?
That makes sense.
So he picks the 4th type, the one who torments neither self nor others as the ideal. Because, that person avoids causing suffering altogether. And this really opens the door for Udeno to explain what these types actually look like in practice.
Right. Ghoṭamukha asks for the details, and Udeno delivers. Let's start with that first one, the self-tormentor. You said it's about self-affliction, but this sounds pretty extreme in the text.
Oh, it's incredibly extreme. We're not talking about, just minor discomforts. The text describes someone who might go naked, live a completely unrestrained life, maybe even licking food from their hands.
Whoa.
Their rules around food are incredibly strict. Not accepting food offered in certain ways, avoiding specific people like pregnant women, only eating tiny amounts, maybe just 1 mouthful a day, or even fasting for days, up to half a month at a time.
What kind of food?
The diet could be things like wild vegetables, moss, rice gruel, even grass or cow dung, just fallen fruits and roots sometimes.
Good grief. And their lifestyle.
Equally severe, wearing coarse materials, rags, tree bark, animal skins, maybe plucking out their own hair and beard, standing rigidly, refusing to sit, sleeping on thorns, immersing themselves in water repeatedly.
Wow.
The text sums it up as being devoted to various kinds of bodily torment and affliction. It's a really intense form of asceticism.
Okay, that's a very clear picture, however grim. What about the second type, the tormentor of others? That sounds harsh too, but maybe less. Self-involved.
It's defined more by action towards others, yes. The text defines this type very directly by their job, essentially.
Like what?
Examples given are butchers, people who hunt birds or animals, fishermen, thieves, executioners, jailers. Basically, anyone involved in what the text calls cruel occupations.
So, professions directly causing harm to living beings.
Exactly. Pretty clear cut.
Okay. And then the third type, the combo platter, self and other tormentor. How does someone manage to do both? Who is this person?
This one's really fascinating because it often involves power and ritual. The text points to maybe a king, a consecrated warrior ruler, or perhaps a wealthy Brahmin.
Ah, someone with influence.
Right. They might engage in elaborate, self-punishing rituals like building a special hall, shaving their head, wearing rough animal hides, anointing themselves with ghee, maybe scratching their back with a deer horn.
Ritualistic self-denial.
Yes, and sleeping on rough, specially prepared ground in this hall. There's even this example about milk from one specific cow, dividing it up ritually between the king, queen, priest, fire offering, with the calf only getting the leftovers. That's the self-torment part, the rigid, uncomfortable ritual.
Okay, but where does the other tormenting come in?
It comes through the demands of the ritual, such as large sacrifices. This person orders vast numbers of animals to be killed. Bulls, heifers, goats, rams.
Oh, wow.
They command trees to be cut for sacrificial posts, grass to be gathered, and crucially, their own workers, slaves, servants, laborers, are forced to do all this. The text says they perform these tasks threatened with clubs, threatened with fear, tearful, weeping.
That's chilling. So they inflict suffering through the very rituals they use to torment themselves.
Precisely. It's this combination of personal austerity and imposed violence.
Okay, so that covers the first three types, none of which appealed to Ghoṭamukha. Now we get to the fourth type, the one he did find appealing, the one who torments neither self nor others. This sounds like the ideal path.
It is presented as the ideal. And the text explicitly identifies this person. It's the Tathagata, the Arahant, the perfectly self-enlightened one, essentially a Buddha.
So the Buddha himself embodies this fourth way.
Exactly. He's the archetype of the liberated path. The text describes this person as cooled, extinguished, blissful, experiencing true happiness right now, living with that pure, Brahma-like self.
Fooled. Like the fires of greed and hatred are out.
Precisely that. They arise in the world fully enlightened, perfect in wisdom and conduct, understanding the world, a supreme guide, a teacher for everyone, gods and humans included.
And they teach the Dhamma.
Yes, they teach the truth. The Dhamma, which is described as beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. It's complete, pure, and shows the way to the completely pure, holy life.
But it's not just the Buddha who can be this fourth type, right? Is it a path others can follow?
Absolutely, and that's a key point. The text then lays out the journey for a disciple, someone who wants to achieve this same state of non-torment.
Okay, how does that work? What's the path look like?
It's a progressive path, laid out very clearly. It starts, step 1, with gaining faith and renouncing worldly life.
So hearing the teaching and being inspired.
Right. A person, maybe a householder, hears the Dhamma, gains faith, and realizes how hard it is to live that pure life while tangled up in worldly affairs described as crowded and dusty.
Yeah, I can see that.
So they decide to leave it behind, wealth, family to become homeless, shave their head, put on the simple robes. A radical step.
Definitely. What's next?
Step 2 is ethical conduct, or sila. This is fundamental. Once they've gone forth, they adopt the monk's training.
What does that involve?
It's about non-harm in every way. No killing, no stealing, no sexual activity. But also purity of speech, no lying, no divisive talk, no harsh words, no useless chatter, speaking only truth, words that heal and unite, words that are gentle and meaningful.
So purifying actions and speech.
Exactly. And lifestyle too. Abstaining from harming plants, eating only one meal a day before noon, avoiding entertainment like dancing or music, avoiding adornments, perfumes, high beds.
Wow, very disciplined.
Refusing money, refusing to trade, avoiding any kind of deception or violence. Just being content with the absolute minimum needed for survival robes for the body, alms food for the belly, traveling light like a bird. This practice itself brings blameless happiness.
Okay. Ethics first, then what?
Then comes sense restraint, indriya savara, guarding the senses.
Meaning?
When they see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or think, they don't just get swept away by the object. They don't grasp at signs or details that could lead to greed or aversion. They practice restraint to keep the mind steady and unpolluted.
Kind of like filtering input.
Sort of. It's about not letting sensory experience automatically trigger unwholesome reactions. This also brings a kind of blameless happiness free from inner conflict.
Okay. Ethics, sense restraint. What else?
Mindfulness and clear comprehension, sati sampajanya. This is about being constantly aware, knowing exactly what you're doing moment to moment.
In everything.
Everything. Walking, standing, sitting, eating, drinking, even going to the toilet, speaking, staying silent. Constant, clear awareness of the present action.
That sounds demanding.
It is, but it's crucial for training the mind. And that leads to the next stage. Overcoming hindrances and meditative absorption, the jhanas.
Meditation.
Yes. The disciples seek seclusion, forest, cave, quiet place. They sit properly, establish mindfulness, and work on abandoning the 5 main mental hindrances.
Which are?
Covetousness or sensual desire, ill will or aversion, sloth and torpor or sluggishness, restlessness and remorse or worry, and skeptical doubt.
The main obstacles to mental clarity.
Exactly. As the mind becomes purified from these, they can enter the jhana states of deep meditative concentration, full of tranquility, bliss, and equanimity.
Okay, so Dike meditation is key. Is that the end goal?
Not quite. That purified, concentrated mind is then used to attain 3 higher knowledges, the vijja.
3 knowledges. What are they?
First, the recollection of past lives, being able to remember previous existences in detail.
Whoa.
That's what the text says. Second, the divine eye, the knowledge of how beings pass away and are reborn according to their actions, their karma, seeing the cycles of rebirth.
Seeing cause and effect across lifetimes.
Right. And the third, a most important, is the knowledge of the destruction of the taints, the samakayanya.
The taints.
These are the deepest defilements, sensual desire, the craving for existence, and ignorance. This knowledge is the direct understanding of suffering, its cause, its end, and the path to its end. It's understanding these taints and how to be completely free from them.
And that's liberation.
That's liberation. When this knowledge arises, the mind is freed. The person realizes birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done is done, there's no more returning to this state of being. This is the individual who truly torments neither self nor others.
That is an incredible journey, just laid out step by step. No wonder Ghoṭamukha was impressed.
Exactly. His reaction after hearing all this is a complete turnaround.
He praises Udeno, right? Uses some beautiful metaphors.
He does, like setting upright what was overturned, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to the lost, holding up a lamp in the dark. It shows how much the teaching resonated.
And then he completely reverses his initial skepticism. He actually declares, I go for refuge.
In Udeno and in the Dhamma and the Sangha, he asks to be remembered as a lay follower who has taken refuge for life.
But Udeno corrects him, doesn't he?
Yes, and this is so important. Udeno says, essentially, don't take refuge in me. Take refuge in the one. I took refuge in the Blessed One, the Buddha.
Ah, pointing him to the ultimate source.
Precisely. So Ghoṭamukha asks, well, where's this Blessed One, Ghoṭama, the Buddha?
And Udeno has to tell him
that the Buddha has already passed away, parinibbuto, fully extinguished.
Ghoṭamukha's reaction then is really quite moving.
It is. He says even if he'd heard the Buddha was hundreds of miles away, he would have traveled all that way just to see him.
Shows the impact the teaching had, even indirectly.
Absolutely. And even though the Buddha has passed, Ghoṭamukha says, okay, then I still go for refuge in him, the deceased Blessed One, and in the Dhamma and in the Sangha.
So his conviction is solid now.
Totally solid. It really shows the power of the teaching itself, the Dhamma, to inspire faith even without the physical teacher present.
And then he wants to offer something, right? He gets this daily allowance.
Yeah, 500 kapans a day from the king. A lot of money back then, presumably. He wants to give a share to Udeno daily.
But Udeno, following the monastic rules,
declines. We don't accept gold and silver. Standard practice for monks on this path.
So Ghoṭamukha pivots, offers to build him a place to live, a dwelling.
Right. But again, Udeno guides him. Instead of accepting something personal, he suggests Ghoṭamukha build something for the wider community.
What does he suggest?
Build a Sangha's hall for attendance in Pāṭaliputta, another major city, a meeting hall for the monastic community.
And Ghoṭamukha likes this idea even better.
He's thrilled. He sees Udeno as encouraging him to practice generosity towards the whole Sangha, not just one person. So he agrees enthusiastically.
And the text tells us he actually did it. He built the hall, and it became known as Ghoṭamukha.
A lasting legacy named after him, born from that conversation.
What a fantastic story, moving from skepticism to profound faith and action. So let's try and wrap this up. What does this whole deep dive into the Ghoṭamukha really mean for you, listening now?
Well, we've walked through these four starkly different paths, from, extreme self-harm to harming others to doing both, and finally to this path of liberation, harming neither self nor others.
It's this ancient conversation, but it feels incredibly relevant. It's about the choices we make constantly and how they affect us and everyone around us.
Yeah, and connecting it to the bigger picture, this dialogue really underscores that true peace, true liberation, isn't found in harsh external practices or rituals or in imposing suffering. It comes from this deep internal transformation.
Transforming conduct, transforming the mind.
Exactly. Cultivating ethical purity, mindfulness, restraining the senses, and developing that deep insight through meditation. It's an inside-out job.
So here's something maybe for you to think about after this. Reflect on Ghoṭamukha's journey. He starts out cynical, dismissive, right?
Completely.
And he ends up deeply faithful, wanting to give generously, and then being guided to make that gift benefit the whole community. What stands out to you most from these four archetypes? Is there an insight there that feels particularly surprising or relevant to how you think about your own well-being, your own path?
It's a powerful question to consider. How do these ancient categories resonate today?
We hope this deep dive leaves you feeling, well, not just informed about this fascinating text, but maybe a little inspired to keep exploring these ideas.